What if buying a smart pet led you to rescue an alien princess and fight for the future of an entire species? One reckless choice, one unstoppable bond, and a galaxy of secrets waiting to unfold. Buckle up, this ride gets wild. I never planned on becoming anyone's hero. Hell, I barely planned on surviving another year in this godforsaken corner of the galaxy. But that's the thing about fate. It doesn't give a damn about your plans. My name's Dane Calder, smuggler, outcast, professional disappointment. And on that rain-soaked night on Haven 4, I made the mistake that would change everything. It was supposed to be a simple purchase, something to keep me company on those long hauls through deep space. The loneliness gets to you after a while, eats at your mind until the silence has teeth. So when I passed that sketchy stall at the edge of the market district, the glowing sign caught my eye. Smart companion pet, premium grade. How much for the canine model? I asked the vendor, a twitchy cerulean with too many eyes and not enough scruples. For you, special price. His three-fingered hand slid a containment pod toward me. Limited edition. Very rare genetic template. I should have known better. In my line of work, rare usually means stolen or illegal. But something about the soft blue glow of that pod pulled at me. Before I knew it, my credit chip was in his hand and the pod was in mine. Back aboard my ship, a battle-scarred freighter I dubbed the Silver Wraith, I set the pod in the cargo bay and hesitated. Last chance to return it, get a refund, walk away. But the emptiness of my ship pressed in around me like a physical weight pain. I pressed my thumb against the biometric seal. The pod hissed open, releasing a cloud of cryogenic mist, and I stepped back expecting some kind of advanced robotic companion. What tumbled out instead was a girl. No, not human, but humanoid. Her skin was voiceless moonlight with an opalescent shimmer. Hair like liquid silver. Eyes huge and violet with vertical pupils that dilated in the dim light of my cargo hold. What the? I stumbled back, reaching for my blaster. That's when the second figure emerged from the pod. Not human. Not even close. It moved like liquid shadow wolf-like, but larger with obsidian plates along its spine and eyes that glowed with intelligent malice. It positioned itself between me and the girl, baring teeth like polished daggers. The girl placed a slender hand on the creature's neck. "Kael, stand down," she whispered. Then to me, "Please, don't shoot." I kept my blaster level. "Start talking. Fast." She straightened somehow, managing to look regal, despite the threadbare clothes and exhaustion etched on her face. "My name is Selara, heir to the sovereign line of Lyser Prime. And if you turn us in, 3 worlds will fall." I holstered my weapon with a bitter laugh. Right, this is definitely not a dog. That was the moment my life of comfortable solitude went straight to hell. And honestly, best mistake I ever made. The girl Selara was tense, watching me like I might vaporize her on the spot. The creature, Kael she'd called it, hadn't relaxed either. Those predatory eyes tracked my every movement, calculating exactly how many seconds it would take to tear out my throat. "Look, I'm not interested in whatever political mess you're running from," I said, keeping my distance. "I paid for a pet, not a refugee crisis." "I understand," Selara said, her voice steady despite the slight tremor in her hands. "And I can compensate you. Once I reach the Persephone sector, my allies will—" "No," I cut her off. "I do not do passengers. Especially not high-profile ones with whatever that thing is." Kael growled, a sound like granite grinding against steel. "He's a sentinel guardian," Selara explained. "Bioengineered from apex predators bonded to my life force. Where I go, he goes." So I'd heard rumors about Lysarian biotech, their ability to merge consciousness with artificial constructs. But this was different. The way the creature moved, the intelligence in its eyes, this was beyond anything the Coalition labs had cooked up. "How'd you end up in a pet pod on Haven 4, I asked. Celara's expression darkened. "When Lyser Prime began dying, factions emerged. Some believed in salvation through diplomacy, others through more aggressive means." She glanced away. "My family supported peaceful integration with the Galactic Coalition. Not everyone agreed. So you're running from a coup?" "Not exactly." Her fingers tightened on Kael's fur. "I'm running from those who would use me as a weapon. That caught my attention. I'd smuggled weapons before guns, explosives, illegal tech. But people as weapons, that was different territory. Explain. Selara took a deep breath. Lyssar Prime is dying. Our sun's radiation is mutating, becoming toxic. For generations, my bloodline has carried unique genetic markers allowing us to survive. My body can synthesize enzymes that neutralize the radiation. And let me guess, someone wants that ability for themselves. The Helix Directive, she said, the name falling from her lips like a curse. They don't want to save Lyssar. They want to weaponize my genetic code, create biological agents capable of terraforming worlds by force. I'd heard whispers about the Directive, a shadow organization operating at the fringes of coalition space. Not quite terrorists, not quite government, the kind of people who saw atrocities as acceptable collateral damage. So they're hunting you. They had me. Her voice hardened. For 3 months in a research facility on Ethos 9. She trailed off, swallowing hard. Kael pressed against her side, a silent gesture of comfort. We escaped during transport, she continued. The escape pod crashed on Haven 4. A local smuggler found us, but instead of helping, he sold us to the highest bidder. The pet vendor, I concluded. She nodded. A convenient cover who looks twice at exotic pets being transported across coalition space. I rubbed my face, suddenly tired. There was a time when I'd have already thrown them both off my ship. Before Nix 6, before my crew betrayed me, left me for dead over a cargo disagreement. That Dane Calder died in the frozen wastes, replaced by a man who trusted no one needed no one. I can't help you, I said, the words tasting bitter. I've got my own problems. What if I could solve one of them? Selara stepped forward, and Kael moved with her like a shadow. Your ship, it's running on its borrowed team. The stabilizers are failing. I hear the pitch dissonance in your engines. I narrowed my eyes. How could you possibly? Lyssarians are empathic engineers. We feel resonance patterns in living things and machines. She approached the wall panel, placing her palm against it. Your hyperdrive is operating at 60% efficiency. The coolant lines are developing microfractures. She was right. My mechanic on Haven 4 had quoted me repairs that would cost more than the ship was worth. I can fix it, she said simply, in exchange for safe passage to the Persephone sector. I should have said no. Every instinct screamed that getting involved would end with me dead or worse. But something about her determination, the quiet dignity in her posture despite everything she'd endured. 3 days, I said finally. I'll take you as far as the Carillion belt. After that, you're on your own. Relief flooded her features. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. If we get boarded, I never saw you. Understood. As they followed me to the cramped quarters that would be their temporary home, I couldn't shake the feeling I'd just signed my own death warrant. Little did I know, I'd actually just found my salvation. It took less than 12 hours for the first complication to arise. I was in the cockpit, plotting a course through the outer shipping lanes, less trafficked, less likelihood of coalition patrol ships when the proximity sensors pinged. Someone was scanning us. Unidentified vessel, crackled a voice over the comms. This is coalition enforcement. Prepare for boarding and inspection. My stomach dropped. Standard procedure required all captains to declare live cargo. I had 2 undocumented passengers, one of whom wasn't even in any xenobiology database. Acknowledged enforcement, I replied, keeping my voice steady. Stand by for docking protocols. I cut the transmission and hit the ship-wide comm. Selara, we've got company. Coalition enforcement. Hide now. I found them in the engine room where Selara had already been working on those coolant lines she'd mentioned. With slender hands now stained with engine grease, she looked more like a ship's engineer than a princess. They'll have bioscanners, she said, rising to her feet. Standard issue. I've got a smuggler's hole beneath the floor plating in the cargo bay. It's shielded against most scans. Not good enough. She shook her head. The new CE7 scanners can detect the energy signature from my biosynthesis. And Kael, she looked at her guardian, his hybrid nature would trigger every alarm they have. Kael's ears flattened against his skull. He seemed to understand exactly how dire our situation was. I've hidden from authorities before, I said. Trust me. Her violet eyes fixed on mine. And I've been captured by authorities before. Trust me. That shut me up quick. She had a point. We need a distraction, she continued, something to keep them occupied while we slip away. Slip away. In case you haven't noticed, we're in deep space. There's nowhere to there. She pointed to the navigational display. The Veil Nebula. It's less than an hour at full burn. The Veil was notorious, a dense cloud of radioactive gases and magnetic disruptions. Ships went in. Ships didn't come out. That's suicide, I argued. The interference would fry our navigation systems. We'd be flying blind. Not with me on board. Selara's eyes had an unsettling glow to them now. My people evolved under similar conditions. I can sense the magnetic currents guide us through. I stared at her. You're serious? Deadly. The proximity alarm blared again. The coalition ship was moving into docking position. Fine. I made the decision in an instant. Hold on to something. I slammed the throttle forward, cutting all exterior lights as the silver wraith lurched into motion. The sudden acceleration threw Selara against the bulkhead. Kael moved like liquid, catching her before she hit the ground. Coalition vessel. You are violating direct orders, came the angry voice over the comms. Stand down immediately or we will open fire. Time to see if this bucket of bolts has one good run left in her, I muttered, executing a series of evasive maneuvers. The coalition ship was faster but larger, less maneuverable. I used that to our advantage, scraping through an asteroid field that they had to navigate around. But they were gaining. They're charging weapons, Selara warned, now strapped into the co-pilot's seat. Kael crouched between us, his massive form somehow fitting into the tight space. We're not going to outrun them, I admitted. Not to the Veil. Something shifted in Selara's expression. There's another option. She reached forward, placing both hands on the console. Her fingers splayed across the controls and her eyes closed. What are you? Shh. Her brow furrowed in concentration. I need to focus. The ship's lights flickered. The engine's hum deepened, resonating in my chest like a bass line. Every display on the console flashed warning signals, then went dark. And then the impossible happened. The silver wraith accelerated faster than its specs should have allowed. The stars outside elongated into streaks of light, and my body pressed back against the seat with crushing force. What did you do? I managed to gasp. Temporary hyperspatial phase shift, she replied, her voice strained. Redirecting the ship's energy through my own biosynthesis. Whatever the hell that meant, it was working. The coalition ship fell behind, becoming a distant blip on our radar before disappearing entirely. After 5 minutes of impossible speed, Selara removed her hands from the console. The displays flickered back to life, and the ship's velocity returned to normal. She slumped in her seat, exhausted. That was... I struggled to find words. Not something a normal refugee can do. She gave me a tired smile. I told you I'm not normal. Yeah, I'm getting that impression. I checked our position. We'd covered enough distance to lose our pursuers, but we were now drifting dangerously close to forbidden space, the unclaimed territories where pirates and worse made their haven. You want to tell me what else you can do? It would be easier to show you. She led me back to the engine room where the coolant lines I'd been worried about were now gleaming like new. Not patched, completely regenerated as if they had just come off the assembly line. How? I asked, running my fingers along the new metal. Directed cellular reconstruction, she explained. I can manipulate matter at the molecular level, living or mechanical, through resonance patterns. She hesitated. It's why the Helix Directive wants me. Imagine weapons that could disintegrate enemy ships from within, or reconfigure planetary atmospheres. A chill ran down my spine. No wonder she was running. There's more to she said quietly. The reason I need to reach Persephone isn't just to escape. My people, the ones who survived Lisser's initial decline, they're scattered, hiding among refugee populations throughout the sector. I carry something they need. She pulled a small metallic disc from a hidden pocket in her clothing. It pulsed with a soft blue light. What is that? Our future? Her voice was barely above a whisper. Genomic templates, adaptive cellular structures. Everything needed to help my people evolve to survive the changing radiation without becoming weapons. The weight of her words settled over me. This wasn't just about one refugee princess. This was about the survival of an entire species. Before I could respond, Kael let out a low growl. His head snapped toward the viewport, where a distant pinpoint of light was rapidly growing larger. "They found us," Selara breathed. But as the ship drew closer, I recognized the distinctive silhouette. Not Coalition. Something worse. "Scavengers," I growled, rushing back toward the cockpit. They must have picked up our energy spike. In the lawless edges of Coalition's space scavenger crews preyed on damaged or vulnerable ships, stripping them for parts and selling any survivors to the highest bidder. "How many weapons does this ship have?" Selara asked, following close behind. "Not enough." As I slid into the pilot's seat, the comms crackled to life. "Attention, damaged vessel," came a voice like gravel mixed with oil. "This is Captain Vex of the Harvester. Stand down and prepare to be salvaged." I killed the comms. "They think we're crippled from the phase shift." "Can we run?" I shook my head. "The hyperdrive needs time to cool after your little trick. We've got maybe 10 minutes before we can jump again." Solara's eyes met mine. "Then we fight." The scavenger ship was closing fast, a hulking monstrosity of welded-together parts bristling with cannons and magnetic grappling arms. "They'll try to latch onto us," I explained, priming the ship's defensive systems. "Once they're attached, they'll cut through the hull." "Can you break away?" "Not if they get a solid lock. Our best bet is to disable their mag clamps before they make contact." I armed the forward cannons, outdated pulse lasers that would barely dent their heavily armored hull, but might damage external components. "Targeting systems online," I muttered. "Let's see if those bastards like to dance." As the Harvester closed to firing range, I executed a tight spiral maneuver, bringing us under their belly where their weapon coverage was weakest. The Silver Wraith shuddered as I pushed her beyond her limits. "Brace yourselves," I warned as I fired our first salvo. The lasers struck the underside of the scavenger ship, scorching metal but doing minimal damage. They returned fire immediately, their heavier cannons rocking my ship with each near miss. "We need something stronger," I growled, juking hard to avoid another barrage. Selara leaned forward, studying the enemy ship. "There," she pointed. "That cluster of cables near their aft section, it's their power distribution node. Hit that." I adjusted our trajectory, lining up the shot. "How can you possibly know that?" "I told you I feel resonance patterns." Her eyes had that unsettling glow again. "Their ship is angry, unbalanced. The power fluctuations are creating harmonic distortions." I didn't understand half of what she said, but I trusted her instinct. As we came around for another pass, it concentrated our remaining laser power on the spot she'd indicated. Direct hit. The scavenger ship lurched as secondary explosions rippled along its hull. "Yes!" I pumped my fist. That bought us a few minutes. My celebration was cut short as a magnetic grapple shot from the Harvester's side, narrowly missing our port wing. "They're still operational." I banked hard, avoiding a second grapple. "And really persistent. They want more than the ship," Selara said grimly. "They've detected us. Me, the unique biosignature." Great. Now even scavengers were hunting her. A proximity alarm blared as the Harvester launched something new. Not grapples, but smaller vessels. Boarding crafts. "They're coming aboard," I warned, already reaching for my blaster. 3 craft, at least 12 hostiles. Selara's hand found mine, her fingers cool against my skin. "I won't let them take us. But you should know if we're captured, I'd rather die than let them use me." The quiet resolve in her voice struck me harder than any weapon could have. This wasn't a spoiled princess making dramatic declarations. This was a woman who had seen the alternative and made her choice. "Nobody's dying today," I promised, meaning it more than I expected to. Except maybe them. I armed the interior defense systems, rudimentary shock plates and gas dispensers I'd installed after the Nix 6 incident, and led Selara and Kael to a defensible position in the cargo hold. "Stay behind me," I instructed, positioning myself near a support beam that offered cover. "When they breach, they'll be disoriented." "That's when we," Kael suddenly growled, hackles rising. The cargo bay doors, the ones I'd been watching, remained sealed, but the maintenance hatch in the floor was slowly, silently sliding open. "They're coming through the service tunnels," I whispered, redirecting my aim. A helmeted head emerged from the hatch, followed by armored shoulders. I fired without hesitation. The scavenger dropped back into the tunnel with a strangled cry, but it was too late. The main doors burst open simultaneously, and armored figures poured in, firing indiscriminately. I ducked behind the support beam, returning fire where I could. 3 scavengers down. 4. But they kept coming. "Selara, stay back!" I shouted just as a stun grenade rolled toward us. The world went white, then silent. My vision swam, my ears rang. Through the disorientation, I saw shadowy figures approaching. One grabbed my arm, wrenching the blaster from my grip. Then something massive leapt over me. Kael. The Guardian moved like a force of nature, all teeth and claws and terrible purpose. 2 scavengers went down in sprays of blood before the others even registered his presence. As my vision cleared, I saw Selara standing with palms extended, a strange resonant energy rippling from her fingertips. When it touched a scavenger, his armor seemed to constrict around him, plates folding inward with sickening crunches. I staggered to my feet, retrieving my blaster from the floor. "We need to get to the cockpit. Seal it off." Fighting our way there was brutal. The scavengers were well-equipped and desperate. One caught me with a glancing shot to the shoulder, burning pain that I pushed aside as adrenaline took over. Kael stayed beside Selara, a lethal shadow protecting his charge. But even he wasn't invulnerable. A lucky shot caught him in the flank and the Guardian staggered. "Kael!" Selara cried out. The wounded Guardian snarled, redoubling his efforts despite the injury. His movements were more precise now, more deliberate, and somehow more terrifying for their control. We had almost reached the cockpit when the ship lurched violently. Through the viewport, I could see the Harvester had managed to attach a grappling arm to our hull. "They're pulling us in," I warned, sealing the cockpit doors behind us. "Once we're in their bay, we're done for." Selara looked from me to the wounded Kael, determination hardening her features. "Not yet." She approached the control panel, placing her hands on it as she had before. But this time the energy that surged through the ship was different, not a boost of power, but a focused beam. Through the viewport, I watched as the energy channeled through the hull, traveling along the grappling arm and into the Harvester itself. The scavenger ship convulsed as if struck by lightning, and the grappling arm went slack. "What did you do?" I asked in awe. Reverse the polarity of their magnetic systems," she explained, her voice strained. "Created a feedback loop." The effort had clearly cost her. She sagged against the console, and I caught her before she fell. "I need time to recover," she admitted weakly. "That was more complicated than accelerating our engines." "You've done enough." I eased her into the co-pilot's seat. "The hyperdrive should be cooled by now. I'm getting us out of here." As I prepared the WUP sequence, Selara turned her attention to Kael. The Guardian's wound was glowing an angry red along the edges. "He's hurt badly," she murmured, placing her hands gently on either side of the injury. The weapon was designed to disrupt bioenergetic fields. "Will he survive?" Her eyes met mine, filled with fear and determination. "Not without help." She closed her eyes, and the same gentle glow I'd seen her use on the ship's systems now enveloped Kael's wound. The Guardian went to still, his intense eyes half-lidded as Selara worked. I watched in fascination as the damaged tissue began to regenerate, not healing normally, but restructuring itself at an accelerated rate. Within minutes, only a faint scar remained where the grievous wound had been. "That's incredible," I whispered. Selara smiled weakly. "It's who we are. Healers, builders, shapers of life. Before our world began to die, we used these gifts to create beauty, not weapons." The navigation system beeped, indicating the hyperdrive was ready. "Where to?" I asked. "Anywhere away from here," she replied. "We just need time. Time for me to recover. Time for you to decide." "Decide what?" Her gaze was steady despite her exhaustion. "If you're truly willing to see this through to Persephone. After what just happened, I'd understand if you reconsidered." I should have. By all logic, I should have dropped them at the nearest outpost and washed my hands of the whole mess, but logic wasn't driving me anymore. "I'm already in too deep to back out now," I said, initiating the jump sequence. "Besides, who else is going to keep you two out of trouble?" Her smile was worth every risk I'd taken so far. And as the silver wraith leapt into hyperspace, leaving the damaged Harvester behind, I found myself smiling too. Something I hadn't done in a very long time. The relative safety of hyperspace gave us time to catch our breath and take stock of the damage. The Silver Wraith had sustained multiple hull breaches from the scavengers' weapons, though none serious enough to compromise life support. Several of my security systems were fried, and the cargo bay doors would need complete replacement. I found Selara in the small galley staring into a cup of synthesized tea I'd programmed for her. Kael lay at her feet, seemingly recovered from his injury, but unwilling to stray far from his charge. "You should rest," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "You used a lot of whatever that energy is." "Biosynthetic resonance," she replied, not looking up. "And yes, it drains me, but I'll recover." I slid into the seat across from her. "Those scavengers knew what you were. The Helix Directive has spread word of my capabilities, put a bounty on my return." She finally met my gaze. "They've made me sound like a weapon of mass destruction. To the right bidder, that's exactly what I am. But that's not what you want to be." "No, Winomity." Her fingers tightened around the cup. "My people were healers, creators. We shaped worlds to sustain life, not destroy it." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I want to honor that legacy." The vulnerability in her admission hit me harder than I expected. For days, I'd seen her as a problem, a complication. But in that moment, she was just someone trying to stay true to herself in a universe intent on weaponizing her very existence. "I had a crew once," I found myself saying, 5 years ago on a run to the Nix system. "Good people, or so I thought." Her eyes widened slightly at my unexpected confession. "We'd taken on cargo from Helion Prime, art pieces officially, but actually bioweapons nanite delivery systems disguised as sculptures." I stared at my hands. "I didn't know what we were carrying until Coalition forces intercepted us near Nix 6. And what happened? My crew, my friends, they sold me out, claimed I'd forced them to transport the weapons, that I'd threatened them. The old bitterness rose in my throat. They got immunity. I got abandoned on the surface of Nix 6 while Coalition officers processed my case. How did you survive?" "Stubborn spite, mostly." I attempted a smile that felt more like a grimace. "Stole a transport after 3 months on that frozen hellhole. Been on my own ever since." "You don't trust easily," she observed. "I don't trust at all." Her gaze was too perceptive, too understanding. "Yet here we are." "Yeah," I rubbed the back of my neck. "Here we are, please." The silence that settled between us wasn't uncomfortable, just weighted with unspoken questions. "What will you do?" she finally asked. "After you deliver me to Persephone?" I hadn't thought that far ahead. "Same thing I always do. Find cargo, transport it, try not to get killed or betrayed." "Sounds lonely." "It's safer that way." She reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. "Is it really living, though?" Her touch sent an unexpected jolt through me. Not the biosynthetic energy she commanded, but something more primal, more human. I pulled my hand away. "Living is overrated," I muttered. "Surviving is what matters." "I disagree." There was a quiet challenge in her voice. "I've spent months as a prisoner then, as a fugitive. Just surviving. It hollows you out from the inside." At her feet, Kael made a soft sound, almost like agreement. "I don't know how to belong anymore." I admitted the words slipping out before I could stop them. "Neither do I." Her smile was sad but genuine. "Maybe we can figure it out together." Before I could respond, Kael suddenly lifted his head, ears pricked forward. The Guardian rose to his feet in one fluid motion, staring at the bulkhead as if he could see through it. "What is it?" I asked, instantly alert. "I'm not sure," Selara frowned. "He senses something." A moment later, the ship's proximity alarm blared. Emergency lights bathed the galley in pulsing red. "We've been pulled out of hyperspace," I realized, already running toward the cockpit. "That shouldn't be possible without a gravity well or an interdiction field," Selara finished right behind me. "Coalition military technology." The view outside the cockpit window confirmed our fears. We'd been yanked back into normal space and directly into the path of a massive vessel. Not Coalition, though. This ship was unlike any I'd seen before, sleek and predatory, with an iridescent black hull that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "That's a Lysarian warship," Selara whispered, her face pale. Faction technology. Friends of yours. The opposite. The comm system activated without my input and a holographic image materialized in the center of the cockpit. A man with features similar to Selara's, the same opalescent skin and silver hair, but with eyes like frozen mercury. "Princess Selara," he said, his voice cultured and cold. "How predictable of you to flee to human protection. Always drawn to the lesser species?" "Vexarn," she replied, her voice steady despite the fear I could see in her eyes. "Still playing the loyal servant to traitors, I see." He smiled, the expression never reaching his eyes. "The directive sends their regards. They've been most concerned about your abrupt departure." "I imagine they were," she said, "especially after I destroyed half their research data on my way out." His smile faltered. "A temporary setback, one you'll remedy by returning to their care." "That's not happening," I interjected, stepping into view of the hologram. "She's under my protection now." Vexarn regarded me with the mild interest one might show an insect. "The human smuggler. How quaint." His gaze shifted back to Selara. "Your choice of allies continues to disappoint, Princess, though I suppose beggars can't be choosers." "What do you want, Vexarn?" Selara demanded. "Merely to bring you home, where you belong." His tone softened to something almost reasonable. "The directive's methods were excessive, I admit, but their goals align with our own. Lisser's survival, that's what you want too, isn't it?" For a moment, doubt flickered across Selara's face. "Not at any cost." "Such luxury of principles," he sneered, "while our people die." "They may because of choices your faction made," she shot back. "Poisoning our atmosphere with weapons tests, sacrificing worlds for power." "Pragmatic decisions for survival," he countered. "You have 1 hour to surrender yourself willingly, Princess. After that," his gaze slid to me, then to Kael, "we'll be forced to take more direct action." The hologram winked out. "Well, he seems charming," I said into the silence that followed. Selara didn't smile. "Vexarn is the directive's most valued hunter. If he's found us, others will follow. Can we outrun them?" I was already checking the navcom, calculating potential escape routes. "Not in a standard hyperdrive. They have phase shift technology similar to my abilities, but mechanized." "Great," I ran a hand through my hair. "Any other good news?" Selara was quiet for a moment, her gaze distant, as if listening to something I couldn't hear. Then her eyes widened. "The ship," she said suddenly. "It's changing." "What do you mean, Kael?" She looked at her guardian with newfound wonder. "He's changing it." I followed her gaze to where Kael stood at the edge of the cockpit. The guardian's eyes were glowing with an intensity I hadn't seen before, and now that I looked closer, I could see faint lines of energy flowing from his body into the ship's systems. "What is he doing?" I asked him, alarmed. "Evolving," Selara whispered. "Adapting. It's what the Guardians were designed to do, but this is..." She shook her head in amazement. "He's interfacing with your ship's systems, enhancing them." The ship's displays flickered, then stabilized with new information scrolling across them. Data I'd never seen before, systems I didn't recognize. "He's becoming more than a guardian," Selara explained, watching the transformation with awe. "My ancestors designed the guardians to evolve based on the needs of their charges. Kael is innovating." The silver wraith hummed with new energy systems coming online that I didn't even know existed. Defensive protocols, enhanced sensor arrays, and something else, a propulsion system that looked nothing like standard hyperdrives. "Can he get us out of here?" I asked. Selara placed a hand on Kael's flank, closing her eyes as if communicating with him silently. "Yeah," she said after a moment, "but it will take both of us, my resonance abilities and his adaptations." "Then do it," I urged. "Before that hour's up." She nodded, taking position at the main console, while Kael moved to an auxiliary panel, his massive paws somehow manipulating the controls with surprising dexterity. "I need you to fly," she instructed. "Follow the course that appears. Don't question it, just execute exactly as shown." "Got it." A new navigation path appeared on my display, a complex series of maneuvers that made no logical sense to me, but which I followed without hesitation. Trust. I was trusting her. The realization should have terrified me. Instead, it felt right. As I executed the final turn, Selara and Kael moved in perfect synchronization, channeling energy through the ship's systems. The cockpit filled with resonant light silver from Selara, midnight blue from Kael. "Now," Selara commanded. I hit the newly appeared drive control. The silver wraith shuddered, then surged forward with impossible speed. Stars outside smeared into ribbons of light. Not the usual hyperspace tunnel, but something different. Something new. A quick glance at the sensors confirmed we'd left Vexarn's ship far behind. Whatever Kael and Selara had done, it had worked. That was, I struggled for words, synthesis. Selara supplied exhaustion evident in her voice. Kael adapted your ship's technology to work with our abilities. The Guardian had slumped to the floor, clearly drained from the effort. Yet there was a new awareness in his eyes when they met mine, an intelligence that went beyond the already impressive cognition he'd shown before. "He's evolving quickly," Selara observed, kneeling beside her Guardian. "Much faster than normal." "Is that bad? Just unexpected?" She stroked Kael's head gently. The Guardians were designed to grow and adapt over generations, not days. I looked at the new displays, the enhanced systems Kael had somehow integrated into my ship. "Will these changes remain?" "Yes," she said. "He's fundamentally altered your ship's architecture at the molecular level. The silver wraith is more than it was before." Her gaze met mine. "As are we all, it seems." In that moment, something shifted between us, a recognition that we'd moved beyond a simple transaction of passage for repairs. We'd become something more. Not quite friends, not quite family, but something equally binding. And as the silver wraith carried us through this new form of space, I realized I wasn't just helping Selara escape anymore. I was joining her cause. 3 days of uneventful travel gave us false hope. The new drive system Kael had integrated allowed us to move undetected through conventional space lanes, and each hour brought us closer to the Persephone sector. "We'll need to stop for supplies," I announced on the 4th morning. "There's a refueling outpost on the edge of the Carillion belt. Not much more than a glorified gas station, but it should be safe enough." Selara nodded, though I could see the tension in her shoulders. Since our escape from Vexarn, she'd been quieter, more watchful. The close call had reminded us both of the stakes. "How long until we reach Persephone after that?" she asked. 2 days, maybe less, with this new drive. Relief flickered across her features. So close. Kael padded into the cockpit, moving with the silent grace that still unnerved me sometimes. The Guardian had continued to evolve over the past days. The obsidian plates along his spine now had faint luminescent patterns, and his eyes held an intelligence that was becoming increasingly human. "He's different," I observed as Kael took position beside Selara's chair. "Yes." She placed a hand on his head. "The Guardians were designed to adapt to protect their charges, but Kael is going beyond protection now. He's growing." "Into what?" "I don't know." Her voice held equal parts wonder and concern, but I trust him. The navigation system indicated we were approaching the outpost, a ramshackle collection of modules and docking arms anchored to a small asteroid. Barely visible against the glittering backdrop of the Carillion belt, it was the kind of place that survived by not asking questions and taking payment in whatever form was offered. "Perfect," I muttered, initiating docking procedures. "We'll be in and out in 30 minutes. Selara caught my arm as I rose from the pilot's seat. "Dane," her violet eyes searched mine. "Thank you for everything you've done." The sincerity in her voice caught me off guard. "Don't thank me yet. We're not at Persephone." "Still, you could have turned us in. You could have abandoned us at any port. You didn't." I shrugged, uncomfortable with her gratitude. "Yeah, well, I'm full of surprises." Her smile made something warm unfurl in my chest, a feeling I quickly suppressed. Getting attached was dangerous. We had a deal, nothing more. "Stay on the ship," I instructed as we docked. "Keep Kael out of sight. I'll handle the supplies." The outpost was exactly as I remembered it, dingy, understaffed, and populated by the kind of spacers who minded their own business. I negotiated for fuel and basic provisions, keeping my interactions brief and impersonal. I was halfway back to the ship when I spotted a familiar face, the cerulean vendor from Haven 4, the same one who'd sold me the pet containment pod. My blood ran cold. The odds of him being here now were astronomical unless he was tracking us. He hadn't seen me yet. I ducked behind a stack of cargo containers, watching as he spoke with the outpost manager, showing something on a datapad. Credits exchanged hands. I needed to warn Selara. I activated my comm unit. Selara, we've got... A stun baton hit me from behind, electricity arcing through my nervous system. I collapsed, muscles spasming as rough hands dragged me into a service corridor. "The smuggler's secured," said a voice above me. "Move on the ship." Through the haze of pain, I recognized Coalition tactical gear, but with subtle modifications. Not official agents. Mercenaries. "The princess?" asked another voice. "Breach team is moving in now. The boss wants her alive. The Guardian too, if possible." I fought against the stunning effect, trying to reach my blaster. A boot came down on my wrist. "I wouldn't," advised the mercenary. "We only need you alive if she cooperates." "Who are you working for?" I managed to ask. The mercenary crouched beside me. "You know, for a supposed master smuggler, you're remarkably oblivious. Did you really think you just happened to find that pod, that the Princess of Lisser just fell into your lap by accident?" Cold realization washed over me. It was a setup. "From the beginning," he confirmed. "The Helix Directive has been tracking you since Haven 4. Selara's escape from their facility was permitted. A calculated risk. Why, if they had her? She destroyed critical research before escaping. They needed her to lead them to something else." His comm unit buzzed. "Breach team reports resistance. The Guardian is putting up a fight." I thought of Kael, of the way he'd evolved over the past days, of Selara's trust in me. With a surge of desperate strength, I twisted free of the mercenary's grip and grabbed my blaster. I fired twice, once at each of my captors, then ran for the ship. Alarms blared throughout the outpost as I sprinted through the corridors. Through a viewport, I could see the silver wraiths surrounded by armored figures attempting to cut through the hull. I needed a distraction. Glancing around, I spotted the outpost's fuel regulator panel. Not ideal, but desperate times. I fired 3 shots into the panel. Warnings screamed from every speaker as the station's fuel lines destabilized. "Attention all personnel," came an automated announcement. "Critical failure detected in primary fuel lines. Evacuate all non-essential areas immediately." The mercenaries around my ship hesitated, looking toward their commander for guidance. It was the opening I needed. I sprinted the final distance, firing at the mercenaries who turned to face me. 2 went down, the others scattered as secondary explosions rocked the outpost. "Selara!" I shouted, reaching the airlock. "It's me! Let me in!" The door slid open and I tumbled inside. Selara was there, looking battle-ready and fierce. Kael stood beside her, his fur bristling with energy. "They found us," she said unnecessarily. "It was a trap from the beginning." I explained, sealing the airlock behind me. "The vendor from Haven 4 is here. He's with the directive." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "They let me escape. They wanted me to lead them to..." "To what?" She didn't answer, instead rushing to the cockpit. "We need to leave, now." I followed, taking the pilot's seat and initiating emergency undocking procedures. The ship groaned as I pulled away from the outpost without proper clearance. "We've got company," I warned, seeing pursuit vessels launching from a nearby hangar. "Heavily armed." "Get us clear of the outpost," Selara instructed. "Kael and I will handle the rest." As I navigated through the dense field of asteroids surrounding the outpost, Selara and Kael once again worked in tandem, channeling energy through the ship's systems. But this time something was different. The energy patterns were darker, more intense. "What are you doing, us?" I asked, alarmed by the strain I could see on Selara's face. "Creating a resonance cascade," she replied through gritted teeth. "It will disrupt their targeting systems." The pursuing ships suddenly veered off course, their weapons firing wildly into empty space. But the effort was clearly taking a tremendous toll on both Selara and Kael. "Stop," I urged. "You're hurting yourselves." "Almost done," Selara gasped. A final surge of energy pulsed from their linked forms, and the ship's displays flickered. One by one, the pursuit vessels lost power, drifting helplessly among the asteroids. Selara collapsed into her seat, exhausted. Kael fared no better, his massive form slumping to the floor. "I've never attempted that scale before," she admitted weakly. "Well, it worked," I reassured her, plotting a course away from the outpost. "We should be clear to..." The ship rocked violently as something struck our aft section. Warning lights flashed across the console. What the hell? I checked the sensors. One ship still operational. Closing fast. Through the viewport, I could see it now smaller than the others, but more advanced. And at its helm, visible through the forward canopy, was the cerulean vendor. "It's him," I growled. "The one who sold you to me." "He's no vendor," Selara said grimly. "That's Mex Ver, a coalition scientist who defected to the directive. He supervised my testing." The comm system activated without my input. "Princess Selara," came a smooth voice. "How disappointing to find you in such desperate company." The holographic display showed the cerulean's true form, not the hunched, nervous vendor I'd met on Haven 4, but a sleek, confident being with cold, calculating eyes. "Mex Ver," Selara acknowledged, her voice hard. "Still doing the directive's dirty work, I see." "Well, science, my dear. I follow the research where it leads." His gaze shifted to Kael. "And your guardian has become a most fascinating subject, HFYLegendsOfZang, the rate of evolution. Extraordinary." Kael snarled, the sound reverberating through the ship. "What do you want?" I demanded. "Beyond the obvious," Mex Ver smiled thinly. "The princess knows. The genetic templates she carries are only part of the equation. We need the catalyst, the original source code, if you will." Solara's face drained of color. "You know I won't give it to you. Not willingly, perhaps. But we have ways." I cut the transmission. "We need to run, now." "We can't outrun him," Selara said. "His ship is designed specifically to track biosynthetic signatures. As long as Kael and I are aboard, then we fight." I decided, arming what weapons remained after our hasty departure. "No." Selara placed a hand on mine, stopping me. "There's another way." She turned to Kael, kneeling before the Guardian. They seemed to communicate silently, an exchange of purpose that needed no words. "Kael has a plan," she finally said, "but you need to trust us completely." "I do," I replied without hesitation, surprising myself with the truth of it. Selara nodded to Kael, who moved to the ship's main console. The Guardian placed his paws on the interface, and the entire ship hummed with energy, different from before. Darker, more focused. "What's happening?" I asked as the lights dimmed. "Kael is merging with the ship's systems." Selara explained, her voice tight with emotion. "Not temporarily this time. Completely." Horror dawned on me. "He's sacrificing himself." "Transforming," she corrected. "Becoming something new." The ship's systems began changing before my eyes, displays reconfiguring, energy signatures shifting. Kael's physical form seemed to shimmer, becoming translucent at the edges. "The Silver Wraith was always a good ship," Selara continued. "But with Kael's consciousness integrated into its systems, it becomes a Lasarian vessel." I finished understanding now. "A living ship," she nodded, "capable of evading Mex Ver's tracking technology." Mex Ver's ship fired again, rocking us violently. Damage reports scrolled across the console. "We don't have much time," Selara warned. I turned to Kael, meeting those intelligent eyes one last time. "Are you sure about this?" The Guardian held my gaze, and somehow I understood his answer. This was his choice, his evolution, his gift. "Thank you," I said simply. Kael inclined his head, then closed his eyes. His physical form began to dissolve into streams of energy that flowed into the ship's systems. The process was beautiful and heartbreaking, the death of one form to birth another. Selara's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, but her voice was steady. "Take the controls. You're about to fly a living ship." The Silver Wraith shuddered, then went still. For a terrifying moment, all systems went dark. Then one by one they reactivated, but different. The displays were organic in design now, the ship's response more intuitive. "Can you feel it?" Selara asked. I could. The controls under my hands felt alive, responsive in a way no machine could be. I didn't so much pilot the ship as suggest a direction which it immediately followed. Mex Ver's ship fired again, but this time the Silver Wraith moved before the shot connected an impossible maneuver that no human pilot could have executed. "He's still with us," Selara whispered, placing her hand on the bulkhead. "Kael is the ship now." I directed our course away from the outpost, and the living ship responded with incredible speed. Mexver's vessel pursued, but it was clearly outmatched by our new capabilities. "We're going to make it," I said, hope rising in my chest. Then Selara did something unexpected. She moved to the weapons console, activating systems I didn't even know we had. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Ending this," she replied, her voice hard. "Mexver won't stop. The directive won't stop. Not unless we make them." The weapons she targeted weren't conventional. Instead of lasers or missiles, the Silver Wraith generated a focused beam of biosynthetic energy, the same energy Selara and Kael had wielded, but amplified by the ship's systems. When it struck Mexver's vessel, the effect was catastrophic. The beam didn't damage the hull. It reconfigured it at the molecular level, turning solid metal into something porous and unstable. The ship began to disintegrate from within. "Selara," I whispered, horrified and awed by the display of power. "They would have used me to do this to entire worlds," she said quietly, "to reshape planets and civilizations by force. This is why I ran." Mexver's ship collapsed in on itself, becoming nothing more than scattered debris in our wake. There was no explosion, no dramatic destruction, just dissolution as if it had never been. The Silver Wraith, or whatever it had become, hummed with satisfaction. "Is it over?" I asked as we accelerated away from the outpost. "For now," Selara replied, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. "But there will be others. There will always be others." I guided our living ship toward the coordinates for Persephone, my thoughts torn between triumph and loss. We'd survived. We'd gained an incredible advantage in the Silver Wraith's transformation. But the cost... "I'm sorry about Kael," I said softly. Selara placed her hand on the console, and the ship's lights pulsed gently in response. "He's not gone. Not completely. This was his choice, his evolution. In many ways, he's more powerful now than he ever was before. Still, I understood loss, understood sacrifice. It's not the same." "No, Weston," she agreed. "It's not." We sat in silence as the stars streaked past, each lost in our own thoughts. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. The Persephone sector emerged from the darkness of space like a promise fulfilled, a scattered collection of habitable moons orbiting a gas giant, hidden from most navigation charts. It was here, according to Selara, that the surviving Lysarians had established a secret colony. "How will they know we're friendly?" I asked as we approached the outer defense perimeter. "They'll know," Selara replied cryptically, placing her hand on the console. "Oh, Sol." The ship, still adjusting to its new nature, responded to her touch with a pulse of energy, a signal I realized. A recognition code only another Lysarian would understand. Minutes later, a response came not over conventional comms, but as a resonant energy pattern that made the ship's systems hum with recognition. "They're welcoming us," Selara translated, relief evident in her voice. "And they're shocked about the ship. They can sense Kael's presence within it. Is that good or bad?" "Unprecedented," she said, "but not unwelcome. The Guardians have always been respected among my people." We were guided to a landing pad hidden within a massive crater on the largest moon. As the ship settled onto the platform, I hesitated. "What happens now?" I asked, suddenly uncertain of my place in this reunion. Selara turned to me, her violet eyes searching mine. "That depends on you. Your obligation ends here, Dane. You fulfilled our agreement." "Right," I nodded, trying to ignore the hollow feeling in my chest. "Business concluded." She reached for my hand, her cool fingers intertwining with mine. "Is that all this was to you, business?" The question hung between us, heavy with implication. After a long moment, I shook my head. "No," I admitted. "Somewhere along the way, it became..." Her smile was like sunrise after the longest night. "Then stay. Help us. The Silver Wraith Kael has chosen to be part of this fight. Will you..." Before I could answer, the ship's sensors detected movement outside. The Lysarian Welcoming Committee had arrived. "I need an answer, Dane," Selara pressed gently. "Are you with us?" I thought of my life before, the endless smuggling runs, the solitude, the emptiness. Then I thought of the past week, the danger, yes, but also the purpose, the connection. "Yeah," I said, squeezing her hand. "I'm with you." As we prepared to disembark, a strange alert appeared on the console, a pattern of energy I didn't recognize. Selara froze, staring at it in disbelief. "What is it?" I asked. "Kael," she whispered. communicating. The ship's systems reconfigured, creating a holographic interface in the center of the cockpit. The image that formed wasn't Kael as we had known him, not the wolf-like guardian with obsidian plates. This was something new, a humanoid figure composed of shifting energy patterns, recognizable only by the intensity of its gaze. Is that... I couldn't finish the question. Yes. Selara confirmed, tears streaming down her face. He's evolved again, transcended the merger with the ship. He's becoming something else. The figure inclined its head in acknowledgement, then gestured toward the exit ramp. A clear message: it was time to meet the others. He'll remain with the ship, Selara explained, but he's more than just its systems now. He's developing a new consciousness, a synthesis of guardian and vessel. I stared at the energy being that had once been Kael. Will he keep changing? I don't know, she admitted. This is beyond anything in our legends, but I believe it's only the beginning. The hologram faded, but the ship hummed with a reassuring pulse of energy. Kael was still with us in his new form. Together, Selara and I descended the ramp to meet the gathered Lysarians. They were striking figures, all with the same opalescent skin and silver hair as Selara, but with subtle variations that spoke of diverse bloodlines. One stepped forward, an elder with eyes like burnished gold. "Princess Selara," he greeted, bowing deeply. "Your return brings hope to our people." "Elder Tyvis," she acknowledged. "I've brought what was promised." She withdrew the small disc from her pocket, the one containing the genetic templates. "And more." Her gaze shifted to me, then back to the ship. "This is Dane Calder, who rescued me from captivity. And the ship is Kael, my guardian, transformed." Elder Tyvis studied me with those penetrating, golden eyes. "A human who earned the trust of a Lysarian princess and her guardian. Remarkable." "He's earned more than trust," Selara said firmly. "He's earned a place among us if he wants it." I could feel the weight of dozens of curious gazes. In that moment, I realized what Selara was offering, not just a cause to fight for, but a home, belonging. "I want it," I said, the decision surprisingly easy. As we were escorted into the hidden colony, a marvel of bioarchitecture seamlessly integrated with the moon's natural caverns, I found myself looking back at the silver wraith. The ship seemed to glow faintly in the dim light, a silent guardian watching over us. "He's happy," Selara said, noticing my gaze. "Kael always wanted to protect me. Now he can protect all of us." In the central chamber of the colony, Selara presented the genetic templates to the gathered council. Plans were made, strategies discussed. The fight against the Helix Directive would not be easy, but with Selara's return and the unexpected advantage of a living ship, hope had been rekindled. Later, as we stood on an observation platform overlooking the gas giant's swirling storms, Selara leaned against my shoulder. "Having second thoughts," she asked, "about staying no?" I surprised myself with the certainty I felt. About facing down a shadowy organization with unlimited resources and a taste for turning people into weapons? Maybe a few. She laughed, a sound I realized I'd rarely heard from her until now. "We'll face them together, you, me, and Kael." As if in response, the silver wraith pulsed with gentle light where it rested on the landing pad below us. "You know," I said when I went shopping for a pet on Haven 4, "this wasn't exactly what I had in mind." "Disappointed," she teased. I took her hand, marveling at how natural it felt now. Not even close. The future was uncertain. The Helix Directive would come for us eventually. Vexarn and others like him would hunt us across the stars. But for the first time in years, I wasn't facing the darkness alone. "He thought he bought a pet," Selara murmured, echoing my thoughts. "Instead, he found his purpose." I smiled, watching the stars emerge above the turbulent atmosphere of Persephone. "And a family?" The silver wraith glowed in agreement, its new consciousness a constant presence at the edge of our awareness. Whatever came next, we would face it together, human Lysarian and the evolved guardian who had become something greater than any of us could have imagined. Sometimes the best mistakes lead to the greatest adventures, and mine was just beginning. Hey there, stargazer. If you enjoyed this cosmic journey through the stars with Dane, Selara, and Kael, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more adventures across the galaxy. Drop a comment below and let me know what you thought of their story. Would you have trusted an alien princess on the run? What do you think Kael will evolve into next? Your support helps this channel grow and means the universe to me. Until our next adventure among the stars, keep looking up.